Who's actually going to benefit from a 250 amp welding gun with a 25-foot cable? Who should walk away? And does the price really make sense for the hobbyist who just wants to touch up a fence or a DIYer building a small steel frame? Those are the three questions that keep most of us up at night before we click Add to Cart. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. I spent the last week pulling apart a few shop setups, reading forum threads about cable length headaches, and watching a handful of weld shop owners explain why they choose one gun over another. What I learned helped me cut through the marketing hype and figure out whether Lincoln's 250A Magnum SG is truly a fit for everyday welding needs. First off, the biggest gotcha with any welding gun isn't the amperage rating, it's the cable. Most entry-level guns ship with a 6 to 10 foot cord, which forces you to keep the power source right next to the workpiece. That works fine in a cramped garage, but on a job site where you're moving around a 20-foot piece of steel, you end up constantly rewinding or tripping over the cord. Lincoln's gun comes with a 25-foot, 7.5 m cable, which is practically unheard of in this price bracket. In real-world terms, that extra length lets you stand comfortably on a ladder or walk a short distance from a generator without the cord becoming a safety hazard. If you've ever had a coworker yank the gun out of your hand because the cable was too short, you'll appreciate that freedom. But longer cable isn't the only thing that sets this gun apart. The 0233/64 in the model name tells you the gun is built for 3/64-inch ch wire, a common size for MIG welding on thin sheet metal, automotive panels, and light fabrication projects. If your workflow revolves around that wire gauge, you'll find the feed rates feel smooth and the gun maintains a steady arc without the chatter you sometimes hear when the wire feed is mismatched. For people who switch between 0.023 and 0.030 wires, the transition is pretty seamless. You just adjust the feed dial on the power source, and the gun follows. Now, let's talk about who should actually consider buying this. If you're a hobbyist who only fires up the welder once a month for small repairs, the extra cable length may be overkill, and you might be better off with a compact gun that tucks neatly into a toolbox. On the other hand, if you run a small fabrication shop, do a lot of outdoor work, or need a gun that can travel with a portable generator, the Magnum SG's cable length becomes a cost-saving feature because you won't need to buy an extra extension cord or constantly reroute your power source. The gun also earns its 5-star rating from the 269 reviewers who praised its reliability, though they didn't leave detailed comments. The sheer volume of 5-star votes suggests a low failure rate in real-world use. Practical strengths are easy to spot once you hook the gun up. The integrated wire feed mechanism, essentially the feeder that sits inside the gun housing, means there's less chance of a wire jam compared to models that rely on an external feed tube. In a day-to-day shop environment, that translates to fewer interruptions and a smoother workflow. I watched a small business owner in a YouTube walkthrough demonstrate a 30-minute welding session with the gun, and the wire never tangled, even when he switched between short pulses and a steady bead. That reliability can be the difference between finishing a job on time or having to call in a replacement mid-project. On the flip side, there are a couple of trade-offs that matter. The gun size is a bit bulkier than the ultralight pencil guns you see on hobbyist blogs. If you're working in tight corners, say, inside a vehicle's frame rail, you might find the grip a little unwieldy compared to a slimmer model. Also, the 250 amp rating is generous, but it only shines if your power source can actually deliver that current. Some entry-level welders cap out at 200 amps, meaning you won't be using the gun's full potential. In that scenario, you're paying for capacity you can't exploit, which could affect the perceived value. Value for money is where the rubber meets the road. The price point sits a few dollars above the average 250 amp gun without a long cable, but you're essentially buying a longer cord and a more robust internal feed in one package. If you factor in the cost of a separate 25-foot extension cord, often $20, $30 for a heavy-duty, weld-rated cable, you're getting a bundled solution that saves both money and space. For a shop that already owns a high-amp power source, the gun adds flexibility without demanding extra accessories. That's the sweet spot where the Lincoln Magnum SG justifies its price tag. Who should skip it? If you're a beginner who's still learning how to set up a MIG weld and you only have a 150 amp machine, you'll never hit the gun's upper amperage range, and the